What's up, guys? James Vick here. Let's talk about sparring today. I think a lot of people really are delusional when it comes to sparring, and they don't understand things. And they also don't realize that a lot of the shit you do in sparring with big gloves, with headgear, with shin guards, maybe knee pads, maybe elbow pads if you're kickboxing or doing MMA sparring. A lot of that shit ain't gonna work when you take off the gear. A lot of techniques, a lot of defense doesn't work the same because you can handle so much more in a sparring session than you can in a fight. You know, I mean that's just common. You know, people don't get knocked out and fucked up in sparring like they do in grappling. I mean they do sometimes, but as a whole they don't. Like, you know, I've been knocked out a few times and people, you know, talk shit to me. So, you know, they talk a lot of shit. Oh, I don't have a chin, this and that. But the truth is, in sparring, in 17 years, I've only been dropped one time ever in sparring. Because things are different. It's not the same fucking thing, guys. And fighting with big gloves and fighting with little gloves are not even close to the same thing as well. That's why I think a lot of stuff boxing coaches teach you for MMA, they teach you how to box. When you try that shit with little gloves, a lot of it can't be done. It's just not the same thing. Inside fighting with little gloves and boxing really rarely works. I mean, there's just a lot of different things. Here's a good one. When you're sparring with somebody, I oftentimes I wear Taekwondo shoes as well, so I don't hurt my feet. But even when you're not, I'll have people like scoop or catch my side kicks. I'll have them they'll do like a muay thai, like you know how when someone does like a teep, they'll throw a front kick and people do like a catch where they catch the foot and then they're able to get a sweep or throw it aside and land a punch or a kick. Well, what happens in sparring when you're wearing big gloves or you're wearing shin guards and maybe even shoes or not shoes, people catch your side kicks. You're also pulling your power. Like I think a lot of that is the case as well. When you're not sparring hard, not going 100%, people can catch your kicks, and that shit's not going to work without those shin guards. It's not the same. I remember when I fought, I first really realized this big time when I fought Francisco Trinaldo. So he was a southpaw, and I just got into Taekwondo a couple years before this, and I was getting really good with my sidekick. Like my sidekick was starting to get good, and this was the first fight I really showed I had a good sidekick. And leading up to that camp, one of my teammates, Peter Pettis, very good southpaw, very slick, very good defense. Every time I would throw a sidekick, he would step off and avoid it, or he was able to catch him too. And I had to quit throwing him. Like I couldn't hit this kid. He was able to frame up with his arm and scoop it, almost like a Muay Thai front kick. And I couldn't hit him with a fucking side kick. And I was frustrated as fuck because he was my number one sparring partner for that training camp. And I could not hit this kid with a side kick. And I remember, but I also sparred with Taekwondo shoes. I also sparred with shin guards. So everything was coming slower and just more telegraphed with all the gear on. It was more real obvious to see. And then I get in there with Trinaldo, a good southpaw pressure fighter, and I couldn't miss a fucking sidekick. I mean, I hit this dude with 15 sidekicks in that fight. I think at one point I landed 2 or 3 in like a 10-second period. Like I just ran them off back to back. A jab side kick. And that was when I really realized, hey man, a lot of this shit, you know, fighting with these bigger shin guards and shoes or big gloves, it just doesn't work the same. You definitely realize it at first with the boxing. The defense is not the same. You can't stand in front of people. You can't frame. You can't do a lot of stuff. And another thing you see a lot of in sparring, that you don't see as much in fights unless you watch very high level Muay Thai fighters. Obviously, they're you know, the world class Muay Thai guys can catch a lot of kicks. But you'll see in sparring, you'll see everybody constantly catching kicks, catching leg kicks, catching round kicks to the body. But in a fight, they don't. Especially the smaller the gear gets. That's a MMA thing. Especially when you're fighting with very small 4-ounce gloves, people don't catch round kicks anywhere near. Not even close to the same in MMA like they do in Muay Thai. So it's just a lot of shit with big gloves, and Sparring is completely different. Sparring is just completely different than fighting. And I think a lot of people just don't realize that because they don't have a lot of fights. But I'm telling you guys, I've fought amateur and pro combined. I have about 60 fights. I fought 20 amateur boxing fights. I have 4 pro boxing fights. I have, I think, 18 professional MMA fights. I have 5 amateur MMA fights. I have pro kickboxing, 2 pro kickboxing fights. I fought for karate combat twice, and all of them were different. Every one of them, guys. Boxing with big gloves and MMA gloves, not even close to the same thing. It's just all different, you know. I feel honored, you know, and blessed to have been able to do as many martial arts as I have. But trust me, guys, don't think. Obviously, there's lots of things in sparring that are similar. If you're able to touch people and you're able to land and have good accuracy with big gloves, you're probably going to be able to have that same thing with little gloves. But just be careful. It's just completely different fighting in big gloves and little gloves, or just going hard versus not going hard in sparring. And that's why I still believe in hard sparring. I don't think you should be hard sparring every time, but I think if you spar a couple times a week, I think one of them should be hard and the other one should be lighter. You want to light spar because you want to try new things. It's harder sometimes if you're going hard to try the new techniques you've been drilling because you're not as comfortable. But I believe in hard sparring. But even with hard sparring, guys, just that's why sometimes you got to start fights slower, because you don't know how the defense, when you're newer, especially if you go from sparring a lot or sparring kickboxing with big gloves to taking an MMA fight with 4-ounce gloves, all of a sudden you have to modify that. You have to, I would say, maybe start a little slower, you know, because shit happens quick with little gloves. So something to think about, guys. You know, sparring and fighting is 2 different things, and the quicker you realize that, the better off you'll be, in my opinion. Let me know if y'all have any questions or anything like that, and if you're new to martial arts, go to Amazon. The link is in my bio. Link is in the description. Get my book, Ultimate Guide to Choosing a Martial Arts School and Instructor, and that'll put you on a good path to finding a good school where you can start going after your dreams.